Hi, everyone. Welcome to how CHG Healthcare saved 15 months on their migration to Snowflake and dbt Cloud. My name is Abigail Green. I am a data engineering manager at CHG Healthcare. I've been using dbt for 4 years now, and we recently completed several migrations, and that's part of why we're here to talk about it. Gleb?
Hi, everyone. I'm Gleb. I'm CEO and co-founder of Datafold. We're a software company, dbt partner, automating migrations from legacy to dbt. In my previous life, I was a data engineer, and I got a chance to lead a massive migration at Lyft, which took 3 years of my career there, and then went on for another 3 years, and went wrong in every single way that migration can go, and yielded really helpful learnings that we're going to be talking about today.
Oh, perfect. Before we get started into our migration story, I'd like to talk a little bit about CHG Healthcare. I feel like every presentation needs a slide where you get to brag about your cool company. So CHG Healthcare is the nation's largest healthcare staffing company, and we have several sub-brands under our umbrella, but most recently we acquired a brand called Modio. They are a doctor credentialing provider. And so in this space, one of the things that I wanted to highlight a couple times in the slides is that data accuracy is crazy important to us. We have, our customers are using our reports for very important things that we'll talk about. So the Modio challenge. Modio was on a fairly old tech stack. They were using MySQL 5.7, which was originally released in 2013. So not exactly modern, cloud-based, exciting new feature stuff. I'm sure they were current on their security patches. But they had around 2,000 queries that were hitting the production database directly. So shared compute, people were not happy. Things were not running smoothly. And these reports weren't just internal-facing reports. This wasn't, your KPIs where, one of the analytics managers emails you when a pipeline breaks. These are customer-facing reports, as I mentioned, and they're using these things for submitting payments to insurance companies, tracking doctor credentialing, doing legally required audits, and tracking their own team's productivity. So the stakes are crazy high with this migration. Now, CHG Healthcare is no stranger to migrations. 1 year ago, we had just completed our SQL Server to Snowflake migration, and that took us 18 months. And we were in a code freeze the entire time. That nearly broke our team. One of the things that I thought about a lot was when we were about halfway through the migration, all of the project meetings started to become around developer mental health. We were worried so much about burnout. So-and-so is looking tired this week. Or, oh, we've just done a big push where we asked people to work extra hours if they could. What does that look like for our team long term? Do we give them some extra PTO? Do we throw a party? What do you do? So when it came time to do the Modio migration, we approached our contractor team, who had helped us with our previous migration. And they're lovely. We still work with them today. And they gave us a team. And the cost they quoted us was $10,000 a week. And based on their velocity when they first started, we were looking at around 12 to 18 months for our migration. I think it would have taken a little bit longer just because some long tail activities there, and it would have been arduous. So when we talked to the business about that plan, they weren't super happy with that, as you might imagine. 18 months for a migration of customer-facing reports is not fun. And additionally, our finance team had just helped us do UAT for all of the previous migration models. And of those 3,600 models, nearly every single one that went through UAT had feedback. And that's not how migrations are supposed to work. Migrations are supposed to have no feedback by the time you get into user acceptance testing, because that's what the QA process is for. So when I was sitting here last year attending this presentation, not this recursive presentation with me presenting, but just Gleb, he was making some claims that sounded too good to be true. The AI landscape 12 months ago was super different. AI could barely write SQL code. You probably know better than anyone.
Still can't.
Still can't, right. So Datafold is promising things like more guaranteed timelines, a fixed price, and using this AI native tech that helps keep my developers' mental health in a much better place. But before we get into how our migration went, I'd like to hand it over to Gleb to talk about what makes migrations so difficult.
Awesome, thanks, Abby. So, who loves migrations? Oh, we should catch up and grab a drink. I love migrations. There is so much talk about AI, using AI to help execs answer questions in self-serve fashion. But I think that AI can also help us, the practitioners, to get a lot of really nasty types of projects done automatically so we can focus on more meaningful work. So migrations are one type of those projects, and they're really hard because they're not just SQL. SQL is our main language, but it's also about templating and dbt and filters and ETL tools that are not even spitting out SQL code. And a lot of times when we do migrations, it's not just about translation of the code, it's about deeply refactoring it. Because if you have a Sprock on SQL Server and you're moving to dbt and Snowflake or Databricks, you're not gonna translate Sprock into a dbt model one for one. You have to often completely refactor how the data is built. But at the same time, you have to keep the interface of the data the same, right? The schema and every single value has to be the same. So you have these two competing challenges. And at enterprise scale, everything is just 10 times harder. And one fun fact is when I talk about data platform migrations to folks who are not day-to-day data practitioners, they always think it's about moving data. But we all know that moving data is very easy, right? It can be done in a week. Now, dbt plus Fivetran probably in a few days. But migrating code is where we have to spend all the time because that's where the complexity is. Code is not portable versus data is. And so a little bit of a history tangent. How did people do migrations over the past 20 years before AI? Well, they developed compilers or transpilers, solutions that would essentially take a mostly SQL query, decompose it into abstract syntax tree, and produce output code. This is, for example, how tools like SQL Glot work. Well, the problem with that approach is that it's fast when it works, and it's good when it works, but it only works in a very small set of cases because it can't handle all varieties of SQL and all varieties of procedures. It does not understand things like dbt and templating and all the things that dbt cares about. And so it only carries you so far. And the other important consideration is that, OK, maybe you have an amazing transpiler that works and you can convert half of your code with it. You still are ultimately doing the work. You have to feed every single query to transpiler. You have to then package it to dbt. You have to validate the result. And how do you validate it? You have to build test cases yourself. So you basically end up still washing dishes, but now you have a sponge and a detergent. So it's a little bit faster than doing that without the tools. And what Abby was talking about is oftentimes we don't have resources internally to do migrations because we're already busy servicing our business and stakeholders. So what do? We can scale our dishwashing process by adding services partners, right? Bring external folks to help out and scale the process. But it's still very slow. It's still very manual. And then they then supply the code for feedback. And then a lot of interesting things can happen. So how can we go from this to a swift migration? Well, in the industry of dishwashing, they invented this thing, right? So instead of having to wash dishes, even with best tools, you can just load your dirty dishes in and then get them clean out. You don't have to scale the process with people. You don't have to do it nasty work yourself. So can we apply the same concept to migration, and how does it look like? So the main thing is, of course, AI agents. So what is an agent? An agent is a technology that can accomplish a certain goal by using a variety of different tools and make decisions itself to get to the goal. So in the context of a migration, what do we want? We want to take legacy code, let's say SQL Server Store Procedure, and we want to convert it to something like dbt on Snowflake. So what does the agent do? First of all, it ingests all the code and builds a graph so it understands how the procedures are related, how the data flows, kind of like a lineage graph, but also a call graph. And then it can go one by one, every object, take it, refactor it, translate it, and at the same time build a testing environment for itself so you can validate it, validate the translation. And once the translation is done, or the agent thinks that it's done, it can validate it with data diff. So data diff compares your legacy data output with the target system output, and if there are no discrepancies, then we're good. And if there are discrepancies, then we take those as feedback and try again. And it tries over and over again until it converges on the results. So in concept, that's very simple. The actual implementation is extremely hard because data is hard and legacy data is even harder. But what's cool is that it's essentially doing what we would be doing as data engineers, right? It just does it at scale and much, much faster than we would be able to write and modify SQL. So back to Abby.
Oh, you. I'm going to go back to your slide. I'm going to cheat and go back to your slide.
OK.
This is the slide that I took a picture of last year. This is the slide that when people ask you, well, what does Datafold do? What does the DMA process look like? Just show them this slide. It's really cool, Gleb, to see the changes that have been made to this slide, the advancements that are here that weren't there last year. And it's very exciting to, like, I don't know, see growth in the product.
More arrows.
Yeah, more arrows for sure. But this cycle between translating code with AI and then checking the results automatically with that data diff is the thing that makes this process work. This is the silver bullet. This is how migrations should be done from now on, period. I feel very strongly about that. So back to the Modio migration. We completed, using the DMA process and Gleb's team, we completed our MySQL migration in 3 months. Not 15, not 18, not longer, 3 months, which resulted in around $500,000 in direct migration costs. Now, that contractor team that I talked about, we kept 40% of them to work on the migration, some long tail processes, working on some higher value models that we needed sooner. And 60% of those contractors actually went and helped with our previous project, where we had an 18-month code freeze and a huge backlog from the business. We were now able to use that contractor resource team to help us catch up on that backlog. And I'm proud to say that as of, I think, last week, we're down to 10 items in the backlog, something like that, from several hundred. So it's been a really cool game changer, and I directly attribute that as one of the benefits of doing the migration this way. Kind of an off benefit, not in the contract. But most importantly, I think that outside of being able to deliver faster with less money, it's sparked this quality assurance revolution for our team. Datafold left us with that data diffing tool. And now in our production system, every time we do a PR, Datafold looks at the modified tables, compares the CI table to the production table, and surfaces the exact changes that were made in the data which resulted from running your code. This means that our quality assurance team is not running a Python script, doing a data frame compare, or staring at Excel spreadsheets all day. They're looking at an interface that helps them find the exact differences that we're looking for or not looking for as developers. And what this means is they can work on more important things, like writing advanced DBT tests and creating tests around business logic. This stuff is so critical when it comes to raising yourself up on that analytics maturity curve that we're all seeking. Everyone wants more accurate data, and 57% of people trust that their data is accurate. The data diff tool enables us to feel much more confident when we do a PR and release code that we didn't break anything that we didn't intend to break. So I'll leave you with a couple final thoughts. There is a brand new way to migrate, as mentioned. And one of the things that that made me bearish on AI, outside the fact that I don't think that it was good at SQL 12 months ago, is that AI is really good at automating away this low-value work. I don't want Randall, my direct report, to be working on, hi Randall. I don't want a senior data engineer migrating code that is like, 100 lines of SQL and contains like select stars. Like that's not his job. His job is to work on creative problem solving, advanced problems, stuff that gets him out of bed in the morning. When I give him a hard problem or tell him we have to work on the weekend because there's something that needs to be done, he almost jumps for joy. Hire a Randall. Don't give him boring work. The other thing related to this is avoid that high burnout work. That's cycling. If Randall's entire job was migrating models that were select stars, he would not work for our company for very long, I promise. But that key is in the combination. That combination of that automated translation to reduce human errors, which we saw. We had an extra 3 months of UAT, and finance wasn't happy because extra time, extra cycles sucked up in their work. And then you can't have errors on account ledger. They found errors on account ledger, and I think people's heads exploded in the back office. So we eliminate human translation errors with AI, but then we have to automate that validation. We have to keep the AI in check. You can get a translation of your SQL code very quickly, one version, and it can run 80% correct, but that 20% is going to get you in trouble really fast. And finally is Datafold and the DMA process helps you prove your models are accurate mathematically. Our UAT process went from an extra 3 months of reviewing directly with our stakeholders, manually, one at a time, finding errors and having them complain, to, hey, we basically eliminated the need for UAT because all of our models have proof that they're accurate, and we don't have to go pester our customers. Hey, is your report correct? We know it's correct. So we can confidently release 2,000 reports to production, and they're running today, and very smoothly from what I know. Correct me if I'm wrong, Randall. And yeah, those are my final thoughts. I'll turn it back over to Gleb in just a moment to give his final thoughts. But what I want to let you know is that I'll be here for questions afterwards. I'm hanging out at the Datafold booth a lot, probably too much. I'm sorry. Trying not to get in the way of your team that's here. But if you have, well, perfect. Well, if you haven't had a coconut, come and grab a coconut. It's a ton of fun, and the team's great. So, back over to you, Gleb.
Wow, Abby, thanks so much. Well, I think you said everything. We love migrations. That's our specialty. We love helping teams get over to great tools. So come find us at the booth, grab a fresh coconut. We still have coconuts? Loads. Plenty of coconuts. And if you attended the session, you skipped the line.
Whoa.
Thank you so much.
We should have brought the coconuts here.
Yeah.
Thank you. If you scan this QR code, Aaron has so helpfully pointed that to a website that contains some additional resources. There's a case study that we created there for our migration, as well as I think the slides are up there. So if you need like some nice high quality PNGs of that how the DMA works slide, that's where you get them. Cool. Thanks much.
Questions?
Ooh, do we have questions? We didn't tell the tech guys we had questions.
Yes?
Me, JK. I see the answer to my question in this graphic. I have to see them.
Okay.
Awesome.
We had one in the back. Did you have a question?
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Raj. I work for a firm called Pro. Quick question. Did y'all run the legacy and the new systems in parallel for a while just to make sure everything?
Sure. Yeah. So the question is, did we check legacy and production several times before we were done? And the answer to that question is yes. The nice thing about the Datafold interface is that you can create data diffs that run on a regular basis. You can create metric monitors for the future. And so our QA team has created a whole bunch of data comparisons. And we actually today are comparing all of our migrated tables to production from our Snowflake environment. And we address any differences or drift that happens on those. Good question.
How many months you ran
Say that again?
How many months you ran that parallel run?
Oh, sure. So the question was, how many months did we run in parallel? We actually are still running in parallel because they are using that because they were using that production database. We're still pointed to that production database and our Snowflake environment. They're just not using the production database for reporting. But if I were to do it again, I'd say maybe run it for a month or check periodically with your reporting. It's fairly easy to set up a data diff. Yes?
I have a question, like when you guys do a data dip, do you have to let the AI have access to your data?
It's a very, very good question. Gleb, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, so data diff doesn't use AI, it's deterministic. But for the agentic feedback loop that compares the data and then gives the feedback to the agent. So in this case, LLM has to look at the actual data to be able to reason about the errors and differences. But we don't do any training, LLM training on anyone's data, and we also don't send it to third-party providers. So for example, if you're using our SaaS offering, multi-tenant cloud, then all inference happens in AWS, and there is no training, or we're not calling OpenAI APIs for that. And then we also can work in your environment. For example, if you have very strict security requirements, we can run in your cloud, AWS, GCP, or Azure. And in this case, none of the data ever leaves your cloud account.
So essentially, you have the option to deploy on our own cloud.
Yes.
And our security team was very happy that we were using AWS Bedrock models that didn't send our data elsewhere. We don't have HIPAA data, but it's still Dr. PII, so kind of important. In the back first?
Yeah. Were there any cases where the AI failed to converge on a particular SQL query, like it ran 1,000 times and it just couldn't get rid of the errors?
Yes, I think everyone heard that question, but I'll repeat it just for posterity here. The question was, are there any models that the AI had trouble with and cycled several times to get a good result? And the answer to that is yes. We actually had a number of queries that didn't converge, period. And that's because a lot of them produced non-deterministic results. We had a significant number of our queries that had subqueries that were using like a top one with no sorting, which, analysts are going to do crazy fun stuff whenever they need to. And Datafold actually helped us out with those. They created a deterministic version of that model, so we had something that was static to compare against. And then we migrated that version of the model to get something that did consistently produce results.
Yeah, some data sets will never be identical because of non-determinism or because of the use of different hashing functions or using of current timestamp in SQL and other cases. And the goal is basically to make sure that one, everything besides that converges, and two, to highlight those cases to the users for acceptance.
We had one in the front.
Yeah, so the data sets that you guys currently process, is it primarily provider demographic data? And then as far as the end user, is it more for the reporting or you also feed applications with data?
That's a really good question. So one of our mandates that we were working against was having near real-time data. And that's because our customers are using the reporting we're sending them to run critical operations to their business. We're not directly feeding applications other than like Metabase, the reporting application, but our clients are using those reports to produce documents to send to insurance companies or to monitor their team's productivity. Or in some weird corner cases, we are storing usernames and passwords for them. I don't want to talk about it. Yes?
Where does the data diff actually occur? Is it if you're moving to Snowflake, are you moving the original data to Snowflake then, or?
It occurs in memory inside Datafold. So we have an engine that either pulls the entire data set out or uses sampling. And the sampling is done properly so that it's actually representative. So if you have, say, 10 billion row data sets, we wouldn't obviously pull them out, but we would intelligently sample them so that we can produce you a very high confidence information on the diff.
And that process runs fast. Like cross-database data diffing, I'm not sure how quickly it runs, but like these PRs that we're submitting, and it's comparing Snowflake prod to Snowflake prod, we're comparing like multi-million row data sets in like under a minute, and it's fast. Like it's one of the things to where like last year at Coalesce, they launched dbt compare, and it smokes dbt compare. I did a test with one of our larger tables, and dbt compare times out after 2 hours because I didn't want to use up any more compute than that. And Datafold just ate the data set and kicked it out. It was awesome.
That's what we do, eating data sets.
Yes. Any other questions in the back?
So if the two data sets are not matching, what's the process essentially? Are you like dropping the part of the data in the table altogether, or is it more hand-in things?
If the two tables are not matching after the translation? Yeah. So there might be a few things going on. One, it could be that the initial code was just not correct. And in this case, through the feedback loop, the agent would improve and get it to the correct state. Or it could be that there is irreconcilable differences that's just impossible to fully match, like different hashing functions, different timestamps used in the table, or non-deterministic results. And in that case, the agent would say, look, I've done all I could. Everything matches except for these two columns. And these columns are, you have to accept that they're going to be different.
And Gleb's team was really high touch with us. We had regular meetings with them. Leo and the team were amazing at talking through the issues that they were still seeing in the data. They were submitting PRs against our code base with the updated code. It was a really nice experience as far as like managing those like extra work situations. Do we have one question over here?
Yeah, like a follow-up to that was, and I guess you kind of answered it. So, like your pricing page, is it when you run into those issues, would Randall be in charge of fixing anything that the agent didn't see, or is it the Datafold team who's actually managing any of those issues that pop up inside of that?
Yeah, the best part about it is we didn't have to do it. It sounds like, I've been talking to Leo, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like there are going to be some possible future exposures that you could get access to if you were in the middle of a DMA.
Yeah, Leo comes with only the enterprise edition of Datafold.
Yeah, yeah.
What I mean is that, so like his team is meeting with you guys on a regular cadence. If there's any kind of issues that come up, say, is that, oh, we just dropped the doctor column because, the LLM couldn't figure it out. So there's, obviously there's got to be some good communication between the teams.
Yeah.
As progress is made.
Yep, regular meetings, they were really high touch with us. We sent them questions, probably too many questions. Asked them to, hey, can you do this customer first? And
Yeah, we have a pretty structured approach, so we would basically, depending on the customer's needs, but typically we'd track like all translations in spreadsheet, and this is the code, this is the data diff link, so you can go and explore where it stands, any issues that LLM classify that needs review, and then you basically say like, okay, I accept that, that's good, or if you have any feedback, we'll take that into account.
yes?
I imagine that for the migration service, you need to deploy Datafold probably as a SaaS, right? But you have only for that service where it's only temporarily. Can you also deploy it on-prem, or is it already?
We can deploy in any cloud, so AWS, GCP, Azure, but not on-prem.
All right, I think that's noon, so go enjoy lunch. Thank you so much for attending. And if you have any
Thank you so
additional
much.
questions, come and see us.